Frostbite, Chapter 22. Horror and shock consumed me so much so that I thought my soul could shrivel, that the world could end right then and there, because surely I could not keep going on after this. No one could keep going on after this. I wanted to shriek my pain to the universe. I wanted to cry until I melted. I wanted to sink down beside Manson and die with him. Elena released me, apparently deciding I posed no danger position as I was between her and Ashish. She turned towards Manson's body and I stopped feeling. I simply acted. Don't touch him. I don't recognize my own voice. She rolled her eyes. Good grief, you're annoying. I'm started to see at your point. You do need to suffer before dying. Turning away, she knelt down to the floor and flipped Manson over to his back. Don't touch him, I screamed. I shoved her with little effect. She shoved back, nearly knocking me over. It was all I could do to steady my feet and stay upright. Aisha looked on with amused interest. Then his gaze fell to the floor. Lisa Chakotai had fallen out of my coat pocket. He picked it up. Strigoi could touch holy objects. The stories about them fearing crosses were not true. They just could not enter holy ground. He flipped the cross over and ran his fingers over the etched dragon. Ah, the Dragomorais, he mused. I have forgotten about them. Easy too. There is what, one? Two of them left? Barely worth remembering. Those horrible red eyes focused on me. Do you know any of them? I will have to see to them one of these days. It won't be very hard to. Suddenly, I heard an explosion. The aquarium burst apart as water shot out of it, shattering the glass. Pieces of it flew towards me, but I barely noticed the water concealed in the fire, forming a lopsided sheer. It began to float towards Ashok. I felt my jaw drop as I stared at it. He watched it too, more puzzled than scared, at least until I wrapped around my face and started suffocating him. Much like the bullets, suffocating would not kill him, but I could use him a hell of a lot of discomfort. His hands flew to his face, desperately trying to pray the water away. It was no use. His fingers simply slipped through. Elena forgot about Manson and jumped to her feet. What is this? She shrieked, shook him, an equally useless effort to free him. What's happening? Again, I don't feel. I acted. My hands closed around a large piece of glass from the broken aquarium. It was jagged and sharp, cutting into my hand. Sprinting forward, I plunked the sharp into Asha's chest, aiming for the heart. I could work so hard and find it practice. Ishash emptied a strangled scream through the water and collapsed to the floor. His eyes rolled back in his head as he blacked out from the pain. Elena started, as shocked I could be when Ishash had killed Manson. Ishash were not dead, of course, but he was temporarily down for the count. Her face clearly showed she had not thought that was possible. The smart thing at that point could have been to run towards the door and the son's safety. Instead, I ran in the opposite direction towards the fireplace. I grabbed one of the antique swords and turned back towards Elena. I don't have far to go because she covered herself and was heading towards me, snarling with rage. She tried to grab me. I had never trained with sword, but I had been taught to fight with my makeshift weapon I could find. I used the sword to keep distance between us, my motions clumsy but effective for the time being. White fangs flashed in her mouth. I'm going to make you suffer pain, regret. I was ever born, I suggested. I remember fighting with my mom, how I could be on the defense the whole time. That could not work this time. I had to attack. Grabbing forward, I tried to land a blow on Elena. No luck. She anticipated my every move. Suddenly, from behind her, Ashash groaned as he started to come around. She glanced back, the smartest of motion that let me swipe the sword across her chest. It cut the fabric of her shirt and grazed the skin, but nothing more. Still, she flinched and looked down in panic. I think the glass going through Ishak's head was still fresh in her mind, and that was what I really needed. I mustered all my strength, drew back, and swung. The sword's blade hit the side of her neck hard and deep. She gave a horrible, sickening cry, a shriek that made my skin crawl. She tried to move towards me. I pulled back and hit again. Her hands clutched at her throat and her knees gave way. I struck and struck, the sword digging deeper into her neck each time. Cutting off someone's head was harder than I could thought it could be. The old, dull sword probably was not helping. But finally, I gained enough sense to realize she was not moving. Her head lay there, detached from her body, her dead eyes looking up at me as though she could not believe what had happened. That made two of us. Someone was screaming, and for a sure second I thought it was Elena. Then I lifted my eyes and looked across the room. Mia stood in the doorway, eyes bugging out and skin tingled green like she might throw up. Distantly, in the back of my mind, I realized she was the one who could make the aquarium explode. Water magic, apparently, was not worthless after all. Still a bit shaken, Ashish tried to rise to his feet, but I was on him before he could fully manage. The sword sung out, breaking blood and pain with each blow. I felt like an old pro now. Ashish fell back to the floor. In my mind, I kept seeing him break Manson's neck, and I hacked as hard as I could, as though striking furiously enough might somehow banish the memory. Rose, Rose. Through my hate-filled haze, I just barely detected Mia's voice. Rose, he is dead. Slowly, shakily, I held back the next blow and looked down at his body, and the head no longer attached to it. She was right, he was dead, very, very dead. I looked at the rest of the room. There was blood everywhere, but the horror of it don't really register with me. My world had slowed down to two very simple tasks. Kill the Strigoi, protect Manson. I could not process anything else. Rose, Mia whispered. She was trembling, her words filled with fear. She was afraid of me, not the Strigoi. Rose, we have to go. Come on. I dragged my eyes away from her and looked down at the Asia's remaining. After several moments, I crawled over to Manson's body, still clutching the sword. No, I croaked out. I cannot leave him. Other Strigoi might come. My eyes burned like I desperately wanted to cry. I could not say for sure. The bloodlust still pounded in me. Violence and rage, the only emotion I am capable of anymore. Rose, we will come back for him. If the Strigoi If the if the other Strigoi are coming, we have to get out. No, I repeated, not even looking at her. I am not leaving him. I won't leave him alone. With my free hand, I stroked Manson's hair. Rose. I jerked my head up. Get out. I screamed, get out and leave us alone. She took a step forward and I lifted the sword. She froze. Get out. I repeated. Go find the others. Slowly, Mia backed up towards the door. She gave me one last discreet look before running outside. Silence fell, and I relaxed my hold on the sword, but refused to let it go. My body sagged forward, and I rested my head on Manson's chest. I became oblivious to everything, to the world around me, to time itself. Seconds could have passed, hours could have passed. I don't know. I don't know anything except that I could not leave Manson alone. I existed in the altered state, a state that just barely kept the terror and grief at bay. I could not believe Manson was dead. I could not believe I could just summon death. As long as I refused to acknowledge either, I could pretend they had not happened. Footsteps and voices eventually sounded, and I lifted my head up. People poured in through the door, lots of them. I could not really make out any of them. I don't need to. They were threats. Threats I had to keep Manson safe from. A couple of them approached me, and I leaped up, lifting the sword, holding it protectively over his body. Stay back, I warned. Stay away from him. They kept coming. Stay back, I yelled. They stopped, except for one. Rose, came a soft voice. Drop the sword. My hands shook. I swallowed. Get away from us, Rose. The voice spoke again, a voice that my soul could have known anywhere. Hesitantly, I let myself finally become aware of my surroundings. Let the details sink in. I let my eyes focus on the feature of the man standing there. Dermot's brown eyes, gentle and firm, looked down on me. It's okay, he said. Everything is going to be okay. You can let go of the sword. My hands shook even harder as I fought to hold onto the hilt. I cannot. The words heard coming out. I cannot leave him alone. I have to protect him. You have, said Drummond. The sword fell out of my hands, landing it with a loud chatter on the wooden floor. I followed, collapsing all fours, wanting to cry, but still unable to. Drummond's arm wrapped around me as he helped me up. Voices swarmed around us, and one by one, I recognized people I know and trusted. He started to tuck me towards the door, but I refused to move just yet. I could not. My hands clutched his shirt, crumpling the fabric. Still keeping one arm around me, he smoothed my hair back away from my face. I leaned my head against him, and he continued stroking my hair, murmuring something in Russian. I don't understand a word of it, but the gentle tone smoothed me. Guardians were spreading throughout the house, examining it inch by inch. A couple of them approached us and knelt by the bodies. I refused to look at. She did that? Both of them? That sword has not been sharpened in years. A funny sound caught in my throat. Drummond squeezed my shoulder comfortably. Get her out of here, Black. I heard a woman say behind him. Her voice, familiar. Drummond squeezed my shoulder again. Come on, Rosa. It's time to go. This time I went. He guided me out of the rose. He guided me out of the house, holding on to me as I managed each agonizing step. My mind still refused to really process what had happened. I could not do much more than follow simple direction from those around me. I eventually ended up on one of the academics' jets. Engines roared around us as the plane lifted off. Drummond murmured something about coming back shortly and left me alone in my seat. I started straight ahead, studying the details of the seat in front of me. Someone sat beside me and wrapped a blanket over my shoulder. I noticed then just how badly I was shivering. I tugged at the edges of the blanket. I'm cold, I said. How? I'm so cold. You're in shock, Mia answered. I turned and looked at her, studying her blond curls and big blue eyes. Something about seeing her unleashed my memories. It all tumbled back. I squeezed my eyes shut. Oh God. I breathed. I opened my eyes and focused on her again. You saved me. Saved me when you blew up the fish tank. You should not have done it. You should not have come back. She judged. You should not have gone for the sword. Fair point. Thank you. I told her what you did. I never have thought of that. It was brilliant. I don't know about that. She mused, smiling cheerfully. Water is not much of a weapon, remember? I choked a laugh, even though I really don't find any old words that funny. Not anymore. Water is a great weapon, I said finally. When we get back, we will have to practice ways to use it. Her face lit up. Fierceness shone out from her eyes. I could like that more than anything. I'm sorry. Sorry about your mom. Mia smiled, simply nodded. You're lucky to still have yours. You don't know how lucky. I turned and started at the seat again. The next words out of my mouth startled me. I wish she was here. She is, said Mia, sounding surprised. She was with the group that raided the house. Don't you see her? I shook my head. We lapsed into silence. Mia stood up and left. A minute later, someone else sat down beside me. I don't have to see her to know who she was. I just know. Rose, said my mother. For once in my life, she sounded unsure of herself. Scared, maybe. Mia said you wanted to see me. I don't answer. I don't look at her. What do you need? I don't know what I needed. I don't know what to do. The stringing in my eyes grew unbearable, and before I knew it, I was crying. Big, painful sobs seized my body. The tears I could hold back so long poured down my face. The fear and grief I refused to let myself feel finally burst free, burning in my chest. I could scarcely breathe. My mother put her arms around me, and I buried my face in her chest, sobbing even harder. I know, she said softly, tightening her grip on me. I understand.